Welcome to today's episode of Permission to Flow. Today's guest, I have Todd McLaughlin. And Todd, I am so excited to have you on today's show. I was on Todd's podcast a few weeks ago, and now I get to have another incredible conversation with Todd. So, welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
All right, so Todd, I would love to get started by hearing a little bit of what are your thoughts on purpose?
Purpose. I think everybody has to have a purpose. Without purpose, we can get nowhere. So I think it's a really important subject and topic. So I'm glad you just went straight to that. I take time regularly to think about like what my purpose is, and I feel like the more clear that I get on what my purpose is, the more I get out of my work. And so I'm a huge fan of coming up with my why. I typically think of it as like, what is my why? Like, why am I doing this? Which does bring up similar question of purpose. So I'm so glad you asked. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how do you feel like purpose has kind of impacted your life?
I I have my own business, and so that was something that when I decided I wanted to start my own business, I I had a strong passion to succeed and make it work. So that for me was my one of my big purposes when I think about like why did I want to have my own business? What was my goal and what was my dream? I, from a very young age, was not sure how I'd make my way in the world, and I stressed a lot about how I would earn a living. I looked around and I didn't have a lot of things jump out at me that made me think, I want to do that, or, that's what my calling is. So it took me some time to figure out what my calling was. I had to work a lot of different jobs before it finally became clear to me what I wanted to focus on. But I knew that I wanted to have my own business, and I worked for other people, and I watched other people run their own business, and I always had this really strong feeling that I really want to have that opportunity to be able to do that. So I feel like if I analyze a little further, where does that come from? I'm a huge fan of self-sufficiency. I do believe in community, and I'm seeing more and more how important it is for me to ask for help and to reach out to others to receive help or ask for help. However, I do put a lot of emphasis on being able to do a lot of what I do on my own. I love being self-sufficient. And so I think the combination of my early dream of being self-sufficient and my strong desire, dream to have my own business, those two, I think, are what has driven me to continue to keep doing what I'm doing.
I love what you were saying there about you had these kind of certain things, it sounds like, that you knew about yourself or that you had this drive towards, but it sounds like it took you some time to get there. Can you
Definitely.
talk a little bit about what that journey was like of actually finding that right path? Because we were talking a little bit before we started, and you have such an interesting story. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I graduated from high school. I grew up in Florida, and my parents had always told me, Todd, if you don't go to college, you're going to end up flipping hamburgers at some fast food restaurant or whatever it is they're flipping. And so I was a really good student. I always did really good in high school. I had great grades and everything, but I didn't really want to go to university. I wasn't really called to that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. The one thing I knew I wanted to do was travel, but I also didn't have money. So I was like, how am I going to travel if I don't have a lot of money? But my parents pushed me to go to school, and I went to college for a year. And our deal was, Todd, go for a year, try it out. If you don't like it after the year, go do what you want to do, but at least try it. So I gave that idea trial. I gave a year, and I was like, look, I'm out. I want to get going. And I had this dream of actually being self-sufficient literally. Like I always had this dream of being able to live off the land and have a farm or have a garden where I could rely less and less on the grocery store and more on being able to be self-sufficient on that level. So I started to travel, and I went to Long Island. I spent a little bit of time working up there, but being from Florida, I'd never seen snow before. So my dad grew up in New York, and when he left New York and moved to Florida before I was born, he just had no dream of ever going back to where it snowed. He never took me to the snow when I was a kid. So I went up to Long Island with my bicycle and thought I would ride my bike in the middle of winter from this house over to this farm that I got this apprenticeship on. And that was a really crazy idea because riding a bicycle on Long Island in the middle of winter in the snow is absolutely crazy, super dangerous. People look at like you're insane. I felt insane. Like, what am I doing? So I was so fish out of water. So from there, I realized I want to go somewhere where it's a little warmer and a little less like this. And I had an opportunity to go to California, and the friend that I was staying with in Connecticut had a friend in California. I met with him and took the train across, and I lived in Northern California for a year. And I worked just farm labor jobs, but I did have a chance to start trying working in organic gardens. And I worked on a man's farm, John Jevons, who started a farm in Willits in Northern California called, he wrote a book called How to Grow as Much Food on as Little Land as Possible. And his whole thing was figuring out how to maximize efficiency out of the most minimal amount of soil, which he was a brilliant man. And from there, this is a little bit of a long story, so I'm going to try to make it quick. But from there, I had a dream of going to Hawaii, and I saved up my money. I went to Hawaii, and I started. I was a windsurfer and a surfer, so I started teaching windsurfing lessons on Maui. I had a friend that had a shop there, and he helped me to kind of get in that door a little bit. I also valet parked cars at the Grand Wailea. I worked at the Chart House Kitchen in Kahului, and I cleaned Mama's Fish House starting at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, I did really hard work. Like, 'cause in Hawaii, it's hard to find jobs. And I went into the newspaper, and the only job I could find was like cleaning the kitchen at Mama's Fish House. So I was game to do anything, though. I always, at that point, because I'd left going to university, my parents had said, Todd, you're on your own. Like, if you're not willing to go and further your education, then you're gonna have to figure it out. So, and I had this really strong sense that I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want to accept help. And which is now, as I'm getting older, maybe not the best way to look at things. But at the time, I was so pig-headed. I was like, I'm going to do this all by myself. I don't want to take any money from my family or anything like that. So I just wanted to work. I have a really strong work ethic. I love working. I personally believe that purpose and having a job, no matter how menial it might seem, or even if it's a job that maybe I felt like was beneath me, I don't believe in feeling like anything is beneath me. Like I want to get in on the nitty gritty and hang out with people on whatever level. But I think work is so important. So for me at that point, I was starting to try to figure out like how and what do I want to do. And because I had this dream of having my own farm, I had no money. Well, you got to buy land. And as you know, land is so expensive. And how do you start? So at that point, I just kept working, and I worked on Maui, but then I had this dream of going to Australia and taking a permaculture design course, which is permaculture is a blend of two words, permanent and agriculture, and it was developed by a man named Bill Mollison. And his idea was instead of creating a monoculture is like what we see when we see a sugar cane field or like just an apple orchard where there's just one culture that we're growing. And permaculture is this idea of let's look at nature, let's look at the way that a jungle looks, and let's try to create a food forest, more or less, where everything benefits or feeds off of the other aspect in your garden. So I went and took a permaculture design course and completely fell in love with Australia, the culture, and being a surfer. The waves in Australia are absolutely amazing. So I went back to the States and then decided I was going to go back to Australia. And I went and I ended up staying in Australia for 5 years and working in the viticulture industry because I had these high ideals of being self-sufficient, but the reality is that I couldn't really make any money doing that very much, really. So I wanted to work in that field, and I then went into the viticulture industry and did like pretty hardcore manual labor, picking, planting, pruning of grapevines, which was an incredible experience in Western Australia, working during year round outdoors there. Is pretty wild, and then I stuck with that for about 5 years, working between a company called Margaret River Tree Planting and Land Care Services, where we would do large tree plantation projects. I had, I'm an idealist. Like I have like a little bit of a hippie dream ideal of like, let's plant trees and let's save the world, everybody. Come on. Like there's solutions. There's things we can do. So I wanted to get down in on that level of like do tree planting. But, I ended up injuring my neck to where I was in so much pain. And somebody said, here, go see this physiotherapist in Australia. Physical therapists are called physiotherapists. And I went to this person in a town called Margaret River, and he did a combination of soft tissue manual technique with dry needling. And I had never had manual therapy up to that point. Like in my experience growing up, going to the doctor usually required, the only physical touch you got was like a little hammer on your knee to see if your knee would have a reflex or something. So for me to have somebody actually put their hands on me and manipulate my musculature and utilize something like dry needling, and then this person was coming from a background of having a lot of years of study and understanding, that I felt better the next day, and I was really blown away. I felt like, what was that? That's amazing. And I started to think, if I don't know if I want to work manual labor the rest of my life on this level. I think I want to study body work. And my time was kind of coming to an end in Australia, and I decided to move back to my hometown, or I went to Miami to study massage therapy. I decided to go to massage therapy school. I think the reason that I picked that is I was traveling through Italy at one point, working with an organization called Willing Workers on Organic Farms, where I was doing a work trade program in Tuscany in Italy. And I met this person who was a massage therapist, and he's like, "Oh, I love my job. I get to work with the most amazing people, and I get to set my own hours, and I absolutely love my job." And at that point, I was like, loving my job, like I liked what I was doing, but I don't know if I really was connecting 100% with like truly loving what I did. And so I thought, you know what? That just really kind of got me thinking that maybe I could pursue that career path. So I came back to Miami. I went to massage therapy school, and I thought, with massage therapy, I could start my own business. I could have a table. I could start doing house calls, and I could be off and running. And that's really kind of how my entrepreneurial aspect of my life started. That was in 2000, and since then I've been teaching yoga and doing massage therapy full time for the last 24 years. So I've been self-employed for the last 24 years, and I have two kids. I have a wife. I have a mortgage on a home. I have cars that I'm paying off, and my son just turned 18, and I'm able to like raise my family and run my own business, which for me is a huge dream come true, to be honest, because it's not easy, but I absolutely love what I do. And for me, that is what is most important. I've wanted to, I mean, I work really hard and I don't make a ton of money, but I make enough to be comfortable and to raise my family. And for me, that is hugely important. For me, I've always put first, I want to love what I do and let the money follow. And it actually has worked for me, I have to say.
Wow, there are so many. First off, thank you for sharing, but there are so many things to dig into there. It's such an interesting journey, first off. And uh the first thing I'm curious about is what your thoughts are, because you actually fulfilled your initial kind of inclination, which was you wanted to travel. And so you actually were really able to travel through this whole time period while doing all these farming jobs. And I'm curious, like, how do you feel about that? Knowing that you were working in things that were not necessarily lucrative, but it was actually giving you the ability to travel at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, number one, I had to be willing to live without a lot of resource. So
Mm.
I did live a lifestyle that I think maybe a lot of people would have a hard time with. I lived off a very meager amount of money, so it made me very resourceful. I slept on a lot of couches. I slept on the floor a lot. I drove cars. I had a car in Australia that I think I spent $500 for, and I couldn't put it in reverse. So every time I would pull up into a situation, I had to figure out how I could park and not have to reverse out again. So, not a lot of people are wanting to like deal with that kind of stuff, but I think if you're willing to live simply and live with very little material resource, I was able to achieve that goal. I'm like a hardcore saver. So even if I wasn't making a lot of money, I really learned how to budget. And if I'd made, say, $500 a week, and I knew I could easily spend $500 a week, I'd try to live off 100 a week or 200 a week and sock the other 300 away slowly, week after month after year, get enough, buy a ticket, get to my next spot, and start over again. So that requires a lot of faith. Like that's kind of a scary way for a lot of
Mhm.
people to travel, but at the point I was 18, 19, 20, I had no responsibilities on familial level. So I really kind of thrived off that type of lifestyle. Now, would I want to live that way? Definitely not. I'm 50 now. I don't want to go back to that. But to be really honest, what's really cool about living like that is that now when things get difficult, I remind myself, well, I've built myself from the absolute ground up. I could do it again. I could
Mm.
absolutely do it again. And if I had to go and work in the restaurant tomorrow and pull out the kitchen mats and start hosing them down and start from there, I could figure that out and I can learn how to budget and grow again. So I think the beauty of starting from the bottom and working up is that you know that you can do it again. If our bodies are capable and our minds are still capable and we have our health, I believe that it's not about the amount. It's about just feeling the feeling that you can succeed and you can pull it off.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a good learning and it's like giving yourself the evidence that like you can manage
Yeah,
regardless, even if it all kind of wasn't there.
yeah,
So that is such a great lesson from that time period. So
that's right.
then, I mean, I love the kind of like fortuitous meeting of like having this person actually be able to help you when you met this massage therapist, but then it inspiring you in your own journey to become that profession. So, I mean, in contrast, it sounds like, obviously doing that kind of work was more lucrative, like, but did you feel like that was still like, I'm curious how it felt in terms of like purpose and values between
Mm.
those two phases of your life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like the one thing that started to shift for me when I went to massage school is that I could see a way for it to enable me to have my own business. So it took me to get to that point where I wasn't sure what type of business I could start. I was looking at my bosses that I worked with in, say, in the agriculture and or permaculture world, and all of the people that seemed to be able to sustain living doing that. They had their own land, and a lot
Mm.
of them had enough money saved up to be able to just enjoy living off of whatever they could grow and still be able to go to the store and buy what other things they need. But it seemed like there was a certain amount of wealth that was already generated or accumulated to be able to do that. So I knew I kind of had
Mm.
to figure out some type of business idea that I could start with. And um, I I think my fascination with the body really started once I started to study massage therapy. I became started to grow that fascination with understanding and studying anatomy and physiology. Your question though, in relation to like how did that change in terms of value? I think what I'm starting to notice now is that as I'm able to continue to work and save, I still actually have the dream of owning land. And I don't feel like my journey is completely over yet because I'm running my business, working my business, but I have the dream and the goal of eventually having an acre or 2 acres in the country somewhere where I will be able, maybe in retirement, to continue that initial dream that I had in my teens. And it's just going to take me a while. I'm still working on that dream, to be honest, but I'm so content now with what I'm doing. And I kind of feel like that's on the back burner and I'll be able to go back to it. But I am deriving the same amount of value. I love working with people. I love talking to people. My business, I have a yoga studio and a massage therapy studio. So I'm interfacing with people every day. They walk in, I get to see them face to face. I get to ask them like what aches and pains they're having, how they're feeling. When we go into the yoga room or the massage therapy room, I can do my best to help alleviate that whatever they're going through. And that to me, like the reward factor is so immediate because people will come out of yoga and they just like start smiling and you can just feel that they feel good. And to be able to have that effect with people is just way, for me, it's more important than money, like than the actual just worrying about the currency side. And the fact that I can generate currency as well, for me has been just like a huge pleasure. Don't get me wrong, running a small business, holding down a brick and mortar studio we've been in this location for the last 18 years. We've seen so many challenges and we've had to tighten the belt. Like COVID was incredibly challenging to be able to keep paying rent through all that. But again, like all these challenges just keep bringing me more excited. I just keep coming back more amped to kind of keep pushing it and making it and working it, you know.
I
Did that
love
answer your
that.
question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I kind of love that because it's so interesting. Before I asked the question, that was a thought in my head. I was like, I wonder if this whole self-sufficient farming thing would kind of come back around in your
Mm.
life. And I love that it's still kind of there. To me, it's like we have all these like threads is the word I like to use, where it's like they don't leave us. They just like transform and become
Yes.
different things to us. So I love that it's like still part of your journey.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's so important, like when we have a dream, and if it's a big dream, it might take 15, 20, 30 years to reach that dream, but it makes it all the better, in my opinion,
Mm.
because like having to take time, like things that come quick, we don't appreciate all that much, It's like it comes quick, it goes quick, and we're just like left feeling like what next? So having like a really big long-term project, I think really adds to the purpose component. I have children, so I put my main focus on making sure I can provide a happy home for them, a home for them. So I feel like that's a really long-term project. Like if you're, for those of you parents out there, those of you wanting to be parents, like get ready. It is a long-term project. So I don't know, but that brings incredible purpose. And I'm not saying you have to go down that track to find purpose, but that for me has given me incredible purpose.
I love what you just said there because I think as a culture or just as human beings maybe we love that instant gratification in life. But you're speaking of the exact opposite of this long-term vision and letting that be a long-term thing. Because I think a lot of people, it's like they're afraid to start because they think it's going to take a long time. And so it feels daunting.
Oh
But
yeah.
you're actually talking about relishing in that feeling. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I think that's so great.
Absolutely. I think part of the psychology that if you can get this in line makes the journey a lot more fun. If instead of thinking, okay, I want to have my own business, or I want to be a successful business person, or I want to have more money so I can achieve more of my dreams, getting into understanding that the years that have taken to get to the point that we were born to the point that we're where we are right now and where we're headed, Like it's a continuous arc, and it's not that we're all of a sudden going to hit one point and go, "Oh my gosh, I've achieved it. I'm happy now. This is it. I'm done." It's always there's always going to be work. I mean, I feel like from like the enlightenment perspective and or from say seeking yoga and meditation angle of seeking enlightenment and or seeking finding some state of peace where I'm actually content. And I used to have this vision that like I heard of say like Buddha or say some enlightened yogi that I thought, man, they must have like hit this point and now they don't have to ever worry or stress anymore. Like they're just so happy. And I kept kind of taking meditation retreats and practicing yoga and going, why am I still seeking? And then I think that that's part of it. Like, I don't believe now that we all of a sudden hit some point where we just are, I'm done. Like, where it's just like, it's over. I think understanding that we're always going to have challenge, there's always going to be a work to do. And right now, if I can get into the moment of finding some joy in whatever work I'm doing. So if I'm working for somebody with the dream of having my own business, the work we're doing, the work you're doing right now, working for or with someone else, is the work you have to do to get to the point to have your own business. So if you can start thinking, I already have my own business, I'm minding
Mm.
my own business, but I'm working for somebody. So how could I have my own business? I think learning how to have a boss and how to be a good employee is the prerequisite for being able to be the boss. So, and then even right now, I say I'm the boss, but I have clients. My clients are my boss. We'll never not have a boss. We're always going to have a boss. There might be somebody out there that maybe got an inheritance that has never had to work, that's never had to learn how to be a servant or to have a boss, right? I think being humble and learning servitude is an absolute necessity to finding peace and satisfaction when we actually do achieve some sort of success in our business endeavors. So, with that being said, I think that getting right into the moment right now, and even if I feel like or you feel like you don't have your own business or you're not successful yet, try to cultivate this feeling of like right now I am my own boss because I am in charge of my mind, I'm in charge of my mood, I'm in charge of my diet, I'm in charge of my where I'm going to sleep, how I'm going to make my bed. Like I am my own boss. And I think like once we get that in our psychology, then we're like, okay, cool, I'm doing it. And it's like you can achieve it right now, here and now. So I know it's easier said than done, and I'm still working at that myself, like keeping this sort of framework, but this is part of my purpose is to just keep reminding myself that I still am a servant. I'm still serving others. I am my own boss, but I still have lots of bosses. And I just want to make my bosses happy. And if I can make my boss happy, my boss is happy, then that's how you start, just like it works.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Maybe just,
I love what you just said there about how can you see that you already are accomplishing that thing that you want and you can do it in this moment. Like, I mean, it's absolutely a practice, I think, and something that maybe people who are listening will have to re-listen to this few times and really wrap their head around it. But I think it is so incredibly true where it's like that ability to go, oh, right here and right now, I already have it, right? Like right here and right now, I can already have that autonomy over how I feel, how I'm thinking about things, how I'm looking at it, and that's already giving me that freedom or that thing that I'm moving towards. And so I think that is incredibly powerful and what a great reflection. So thank you for sharing that.
thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank
So I'm curious, like how did yoga come into the picture then for you?
Ooh, good. So I was going to massage therapy school in Miami. My mom and dad live in a town called Tequesta, and it's about an hour and 15 minutes north of Miami in a town called in Palm Beach County. And so I was driving up and visiting my mom and dad on the weekends when I wasn't taking the course. And my mom started practicing a style of yoga called Bikram yoga, which is popular hot yoga. And I had when I was 18, I started practicing yoga, but I started a style. I actually started hanging out with the Hare Krishna devotees and chanting, learning like mantra yoga, japa mantra, or like mantra yoga, where you just like you have a 808 beads, or those of you that grew up Catholic, like your rosary beads are they're malas. They're the same thing that are used in India. I guess the theory is that the Catholics actually got it from the Indians, but we won't debate that. But we could debate it if you want. But nonetheless, so just chanting, mantra chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and that was the first type of yoga that I learned. And so then I explored different yoga. When I was in Australia, I met an Iyengar yogi and I started taking Iyengar classes, but it that didn't fully grab me. It was a little slow. I love
Mm,
Iyengar now. I really
mm,
appreciate Iyengar yoga now, but at the time, it just didn't catch me all that much. And so when my mom was like, "Todd, you gotta try this Bikram yoga with me," I went to Bikram yoga class and it was so hard. It was so freaking hot, and I absolutely loved it. And I came out of the yoga room going, I just felt so good. I thought, wow, this is so cool, because to get a massage therapy session, you would lay on a table and somebody else has to work on you, and you get off the table and you feel so good. And you get an incredible feeling I get an incredible feeling from massage therapy. But when I went into the yoga room, I found I could actually do a yoga practice and have a similar type of feel good afterward effect that I started to think like, well, maybe massage therapy and yoga actually have a lot more in common than I realized. And it felt
mm.
like yoga was like a self body work. It kind of felt like a self massage. Like you could kind of get a similar effect. So I thought, these two things work really good together. And so I was practicing. I just really got so amped on yoga. I started going to yoga every day. And that helped me a lot because I was like coming out of my party phase. And I really just started thinking, I want to just give up this whole partying thing and get a little more into health. And I started getting more like addicted to yoga to where I was like, I just didn't want to go out. I wanted to feel really good when I woke up in the morning. I wanted to do yoga first thing
Mhm.
and start practicing yoga every day. I started practicing yoga twice a day. I was really into it. So I'd met someone when I finished massage school. They said, well, what type of massage modality would you like to go into? And I was like, well, they asked me like, what do you like? And I said, I love massage. I love yoga. And they said, well, have you heard of Thai massage? I said, no. They said, well, it's like a blend of yoga and massage. And right then a light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to study Thai massage. And I love traveling. So I saved up my money and I went to Thailand. I had never had a Thai massage, but I thought this is my excuse to travel to Thailand. And I got my first Thai massage in Bangkok at a place called Wat Po. And that was an incredible experience. That blew my mind because I went to Wat Po and there's this big room where there's about 70 mats on the floor. And for those of you that haven't had Thai massage, I'll try to explain it here. But Thai massage is like there's a mat on the floor, you stay fully clothed, and the therapist moves you through a series of yoga like stretches while working acupressure points along the meridians. And so I was laying on the floor receiving Thai massage. There's about 60 or 70 other Thai massage therapists and about 60 or 70 other people getting massage at the same time. And it's like one big room. So it's not like in a treatment room when you go to a spa and you're like in this one room with somebody. It was this huge room with all these people. And I just was like, what in the world is going on? And one person would get up and they'd walk off, and the next person would come and lay down. And it was this huge, like, massage room happening. And it just blew my mind. I'd never experienced anything like it. And I got so in love. I went to northern Thailand. I met my Thai massage teacher, Chung Kal Setakorn, and I started training Thai massage. And it blended everything so perfectly together for me. I was like, okay, this is my passion. And I just added to my passion. So when I came back to Florida, I started doing Thai massage and teaching yoga. And I found that those two things work so unbelievably well together because it's just a really beautiful modality, and everything really started to come together. I found that the more I studied and traveled and studied, I could put more and more pieces together. It was just this feeling that it was growing, that my learning was growing, and my appreciation for yoga and massage. And I continue to pursue different modalities of massage, and I continue to pursue different modalities of yoga. From there, came back to Florida. My wife and I, well, at the time we weren't married yet, but Tamara, my now wife, we've been married 20 years in October. We had an opportunity to run a Bikram yoga studio in California. And this was our first chance to actually run a brick and mortar studio as a co-owner. We had other people that bought it and they needed somebody to run it, and they made us 50-50 ownership in the profits. And people had said to us, look, if you guys are boyfriend, girlfriend, and you're going to work together, this will either make or break you. Like, couples can either work really well together or you want to kill each other. And so we thought this is going to be a great way for us to figure out if we actually can work together. And we loved it. We moved to San Diego, and we started running the studio. We rented a small apartment. We had one car. I rode a bicycle every day back and forth to the studio, and we made it. It started to pump. It was thriving. We had a really successful yoga studio, and we had taken Bikram yoga teacher training, which is a whole nother story. But when we hit this point where we started to like not really love hot yoga, and Bikram, I won't go far down this track, but Bikram's not a really nice person. He wasn't a role model to me. I just didn't really like the way he was dealing with people. And I thought, I want to study a different type of yoga. And I'd wanted to go to India because I felt like maybe I'll get a more authentic experience in India. And I didn't want this like American commercialized yoga. I wanted to try to see what it was like in India. And we went and studied with Patabi Joyce Ashtanga Yoga in Mysore. And this is in 2004. And that was another absolutely mind-blowing experience. And when we got in there, when I started practicing Mysore style Ashtanga, for those of you that don't know what that is, I'll just try to explain. You memorize the routine, you go into the room, everyone practices the routine at their own pace, and the teacher walks around and helps doing assists or adjustments in the poses. So as I was practicing yoga, it was like somebody would come over and do a Thai massage move on me, a stretch on me while I was practicing, and then another light bulb went off. I was like, now this is a way I can incorporate my Thai massage stretching with people while they're practicing yoga. And I was like, okay, here's another piece of the puzzle that's really taking me another step further. So we studied with Patabi Joyce and came back, and that's when we decided, you know what, we weren't happy with what was going on in the Bikram yoga world. And we wanted to move out of the franchise realm and actually do a sole independent mom and pop studio that wasn't a part of some larger organization. And that's when we opened up our studio, Native Yoga Center, here in Juno Beach. And that's 18 years ago. And we've been in the same location ever since. So that's another long answer to your question. And I think your initial question was my how did I get involved in yoga? So
Yeah.
that's kind of a quick version of some of the different aspects that then I was able to blend yoga practice in with my massage therapy practice, and that's what I'm teaching and practicing today.
No, that was amazing. I love it because it was so filled with these like little aha moments along the way where it's like, okay, I've been doing this thing, now I incorporate this, and you're like, yes, and then this other thing comes along and yes, and like so I love the analogy that you were doing of the puzzle pieces coming together. I feel like that was so amazing, right? Where it's like you're still and to me it's like you still following your purpose throughout the whole journey. But it's like each time it's like something else clicks in and makes sense for you and you keep going along and you're like, oh, this makes even more sense. And then you keep going. And so I love that kind of the way that you told that story was just very
Oh,
compelling. So
thank
thank
you,
you for
Sarah.
sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, and then, so I'm curious because so now you're owning this, not a franchise, like your sole, like your own business, the dream that you had set out for at the very beginning. Like, what has that really been like? I know you talked a little bit about the ups and downs of it. I think that some people get a little concerned around moving into wellness spaces, which you've spent most of your career in, because of the fact that like it might not be very lucrative, like there's all these issues around it, and yet people really want to be teaching yoga and doing these kind of wellness practices. So how has that really been for you?
Oh, what an incredible journey. I highly recommend it. but I want to preface my endorsement with a little joke that somebody told me recently from an entrepreneurial nature, an entrepreneurial side. They said, the really cool thing about being your own boss is you get to choose which 12 hours of the day you want to work. And so, being a small business owner, you are pretty much I've set myself up to work 12 hours a day if I have to on some days now. When I first started my business, I had this sort of idea that I would be able to grow it and eventually just kick back and collect residuals and be retired and not have to do much. And that hasn't really been my scenario, because what I'm finding in the service industry, and this, I do see yoga and massage as a service industry job, is that, you know, it's so it's so personal, and people are coming for my wife and I, and we have incredible teachers here in our studio that have been with us for a really long time, and I feel like we're a really tight community, a tight knit group, and really supportive of each other. And I say that being that, but I do feel like people do come to my wife and I because we are here every single day. And when we remove ourselves from the equation, like I just got back from vacation, I feel like there's this, like when when the cat's away, the mice will play. It's like, oh, Todd and Tamara are gone. Well, you know what? We'll stay gone too. And then we come back in, and then people come back in. It's like, I have to be here. My business requires that I'm here consistently being present. And because I have a very specialized niche skill with our yoga and with my massage practice, that I try to bring more people in, but people are coming because they've heard about me. Does that, like I don't want to say that from a conceited place, but more from an
Yeah.
actual place. The better you get at your profession, the more people want you, but they want you. And so to switch over to like training a team where I could step away and have them do all the work, I haven't figured that part out yet. I'm still a very hands-on kind of business owner, and I do everything. As much of it, my wife and I do everything. I would not want to run this business without my wife, to be honest. She does so much of the stuff I don't want to do, and I do a lot of stuff she doesn't want to do. And to be able to have the two of us to be able to hold it down like that is so incredible. So, there's so much to talk about here in terms of running a small business, and I want to stay on track with your question. The ups and the downs, what are the hard parts? The hard parts are have to show up every single day. The good part of that, I have to show up every single day, so I don't get to be lazy. When I want to hit the snooze button, like this morning, I have a whiteboard that I write on every day, and I wake up and I write down what are the tasks that I have to perform today, or I at least I'm aiming to perform. Like today's tasks were, I got to finish my quarterly report. So one thing about being a business owner is you have to do your taxes. I have an accountant, but I have to do quarterly reports. So you have to import everything into QuickBooks. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it's not my most favorite thing to do either. So that's one of those things that, like, okay, you got to be self-motivated to pull that off. The other thing I have to do is I have to edit my podcast for this week. So I got that on the agenda. But at the bottom, I wrote really big, don't hit snooze. And I don't know where that came from. I heard it somewhere. I heard something today, or I saw a social media post or something. It was like, don't hit snooze. And I'm like, I love that. Don't hit snooze. Like, get up, get started. And I think that's what I love about having a business, because I have to show up. If I didn't have to show up, I could come up with so many different excuses. And something about the routine is so good for my health and wellness, because like knowing that I have to show up and having that purpose, I don't even give myself a second chance. Like I don't second guess it. So when my alarm went off this morning, I was like, I do my exercises. I went for a walk. I walk my dog. I have certain things I like to do in the morning as a morning ritual. I try not to pick up my phone. I try not to look at social media when it's dark out. I get up at 5 a.m. It's dark out. I try to do my yoga and meditation, and I have an inversion table, try to get my back stretched out. Like there's things that I do to like work on my own personal health and wellness first thing right away. And that usually gives me the inspiration to then see everybody and work with everybody throughout the day. So I have found that I have to budget time for my self care. When I put my business first and I put myself second, I start to notice that I start feeling crappy and then I'm not really enjoying what I'm doing as much. So it's hard though to budget taking care of ourselves first before the business when we have to pay our bills because it's so scary when you have a lot of overhead. You gotta come up with the rent every month. So it's hard to find that balance. I know I'm getting a little off the subject, but I feel like it's a really important part of being a self-made business person is that definitely budget in time for self-care and make sure that you keep, even if it's 5 minutes, some sort of self-care routine. And I find if you do that, that's where I get a lot of my motivation to then like, okay, 6 days a week, here we go. I make sure I have 1 day off a week, but I only take 1 day off a week because there's so many things I want to do. I have so many projects I'm working on with my business, like between podcasts, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. I try to do all my social media marketing myself. I teach live stream classes, so I have an online platform. So I'm keeping my content up on my online practice. And then plus coming in, I keep a full schedule of massage therapy clients every day and teaching classes. I teach 3 to 4 classes every day in the studio. So I get so much joy out of actually doing it, but I personally feel like it does require a lot of work. I just think you got to be willing to dig in and work hard, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, I feel like what you just said made me be like, yes, there is no doubt in my mind that you, Todd, are a very busy person. But it also sounds like you're doing so many wonderful things that are helping so many people. So I love all
Mhm.
that. I love your tangent, honestly, because I think it is really, really important to note that it's like you don't go into following your purpose and doing things that are in service of others without needing to take care of yourself, right? Like you have to come first. And it's like we can only give if we're pouring into our own cup first. So I think that was like a very, very important point to make because people can lose sight of that and then you burn out in the thing that you actually enjoy doing and we don't want that for ourselves. It's not how you can continue helping other people. So I love what you were saying there. I definitely also make such a point of saying like my personal practice and my time in the morning is super important to me, and it's the only way that we are able to do all the millions of things that we want to do to help other people. So I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. The so wait, what was my next point?
It's okay.
I
You don't have to talk if you don't want. Just keep talking. I like your questions. I want to pause enough to actually let you direct me.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you said so much great stuff there. I was like, where do I want to go next? I mean, was there anything else you want to share off of that?
Well, I'm curious, what is your daily ritual? Like what, I know maybe not every day, but if you have your ideal daily ritual, what type of things do you do to keep your motivation going?
Yeah, so I have a very pretty structured self practice for me. Like I start my morning with Reiki, so I'm also a Reiki
Nice.
practitioner. So I
Cool.
literally lay in bed. This is kind of it's funny. I started this because I don't like to get out of bed very quickly. It's like I have friction for that. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, if I do my Reiki practice in bed, then A, I get to luxuriate in my bed for a moment without feeling guilty about it, and B, I get to do Reiki on myself. So I do that and then I get ready. And then I journal, I do some pranayama, some meditation, and I do some movement. And then I start
Nice.
my day. So and it's like, the practices may change, but it's pretty much, I always do a little bit of everything. Just to kind of like, I feel like it's like tuning the gears in my head so I can do all the things I want to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree. I'm pretty good about keeping it on the daily, but of course I'm human and I sleep in too, and I do hit the snooze button when I need to. I mean, being able to keep the body battery charged is a really challenging thing personally as a yoga teacher, and body worker. It's very physical work. I have had some physical challenges. About 2 years ago, I started to develop extremely intense back pain that really threw a spanner in my whole world because I'm so physical and so active that when my body started to talk to me and say, Todd, you have to lay down, you have to literally stop. Like I had such extreme back pain. And it was so embarrassing because I'm like, I'm the yoga teacher, massage therapy guy. I'm coming in, I can hardly move, and I'm in so much pain. And so that was not what I had in the cards for me as like part of my successful business plan. That was like the opposite of what I expected to happen in my career path. But part of the challenge of how hard I push myself is that my body, what's so amazing is the body will talk to us, and or our mind, everything's talking to us, and if we're not paying attention and listening and trying to override this feelings that we have, it'll get so intense. And for me, it got so intense that I started going to doctors. It turned into doctors telling me I needed to have surgery. I needed to fuse my spine. And again, this was like, no, this is not what I envisioned. I thought, now I'm going for back surgery. I couldn't believe it. So I, my wife started taking over and she's like, Todd, you're staying home. You're not going out. You're staying home. And I was like, I was like freaking, but that was literally what I needed to do. And it's been about a 2 year process. I decided I wasn't going to go for surgery. And I started just researching and reading books. And for me, I'm an Ashtanga yoga practitioner, and I've been pulled on and pushed on to do back bends. And I love back bends, and I can do really deep back bends, but I have a spondylolisthesis where my L5 has slid forward. So now when I back bend, it compresses my spinal cord so intense that I can't move the rest of the day. So I had to give up back bending. And for me, like, I love backbending so much, and I got so much attention because of how deep I could go in my backbends that I had an identity around this, that it was this like cosmic, it was like God was telling me, okay, well, it's time for you to grow now, and you got to change, and you can't do what you've been doing all these all these years. And I had to completely eliminate backbends out of my practice. And I can do bridges, and I can actually do backbends now that I've healed, but I don't really want to. It's I have this thing of like, now I need to stiffen my spine a little bit, and I need a little more stability. I pushed so hard into flexibility that I got too loose, and now I'm actually trying to tighten up, which is a really funny concept as a yoga teacher. Like, I never thought I was going to try to get tighter, but now I'm trying to tighten up. And I mean, this is part of life. Like, we have to constantly, it's not going to go the way we want. It doesn't go the way we expect. But there's so many gems that come out of like learning to bend and move in a new way, like literally, but also figuratively speaking. And I think from a business perspective too, there's been so many things that I thought I was doing what I need to do, and I'd had to just completely wipe this slate clean and start all over again. So right now I can say I'm not in a lot of pain. I'm learning how to manage my pain, and that has been one of the best, most empowering life experiences of my life. I At first I felt so defeated. I did cry. I was like so beat down, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've come out of this, and I'm feeling better. And I think one of the main thing that's happened for me too, from a yoga teaching perspective, it's making me a better teacher, because now when someone comes in and says I have back pain, before I was like, oh yeah, back pain, sure. Well, this is what other people told me you should do. But now that I'm learning how to heal my back pain, when people come in and say I have back pain, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to share this with you. I got to show you what I've learned. I've gone through the ringer, and I think I've figured some things out. Let me try to see if it'll work for you. And I think that if we can approach life like this, where if we take our hardships and don't give up and study and research and ask for help and try to learn how we can fix and change and grow, that's what makes us better. And that's what grows our business. That's what helps us to find our niche. That's what helps us to know what to dial in on. And That's not the way I kind of wanted it to happen, but I'm actually thankful for it now. I'm thankful for the pain. I'm thankful for the suffering because it's helping me become a better person, I think. It seems like. Anyway.
Well, I'm curious, like, did you end up having to get surgery or you were able to heal it through other?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I'm open to if I have to go get surgery at some point later on in life, I will do it.
Mm,
But my goal is to try to not do it because I started talking to a lot of people that had spinal fusions and I heard
mhm,
mixed reviews. And I went to a doctor. He's like, "Look, you have 30% chance it'll help, 30% chance you'll be exactly the same, and 30% chance you'll be the worst and
mm.
or worse off." And I was like, 30% chance same, 30% chance worse. That's at least 60% chance that things aren't going to get better. The odds are
Right.
not looking as good, right?
Mm,
But some people get so much compression that I believe fusion and lifting the pressure off of the nerves is
mm,
absolutely critical. So
mhm.
I believe in asking help from doctors. I'm not the type of yoga person that says I won't visit a medical doctor. I've had to have help from doctors, and I'm very thankful for the medical association. But I'm also on the holistic side of things where if I can avoid surgery, I'm going to. Like, I'm not looking to try to get fixed with the knife on every
Sure.
single pain. So, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. And the biggest one, and I know this is taking us a little off topic, but if there's anybody listening that has back pain, buy a book called The Back Mechanic by Stuart McGill. And if you're a yoga teacher, or Jessica, you probably don't have back pain, but as a yoga teacher, if you read The Back Mechanic, wow,
Mm,
simple, applicable advice that you can use as a teacher, or if you're a physical therapist or whatever, that is just profound. And there's so many people that suffer from back pain, like the percentages are enormous.
yeah.
So I honestly I just think it's a real thing. And I mean, pain and suffering, we're trying to figure out how to alleviate our pain and suffering and it's a journey for sure. But this is what we're trying to do. We want to figure out how to less suffering, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love everything you've been sharing here because A, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to go check that out. But B, it is so true. Like the things that those hardships enable us to be able to really provide more to the people that are also suffering similarly. So sometimes we have to learn things the hard way in order to assist others to learn it a little bit
Oh my
easier than
gosh,
what we went through. And it sounds like you've
definitely.
done that, which is amazing.
Oh, well, thank you,
Yeah.
Jessica. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God, we've already been talking for quite a while. And I'm like, oh, there's
I
so
know.
many other things I want to talk to you about.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that's what's when interesting people meet. It's not hard to converse. We could talk all day.
It's
Um,
true. But before we wrap up, I'm like, because I was like, oh, I feel like I was curious like what your experience was like through COVID, and you started your podcast during COVID. Maybe let's talk a little bit about that, and then we can wrap up
yes,
from
please.
there. But I would
Yeah.
love to kind of talk about that because that's I think let's talk about the biggest struggle in terms of like financial and like all of the work that you do was so in person and everything. And so having to shift gears around that, I'd love to hear a little bit about what that was like for you.
Thank you, Jessica. I love talking about this. So as a massage therapist and a yoga teacher, when there was this concept of pandemic and 6 feet apart, it was like having the rug ripped out from underneath me because everything I do is about being in a closed space in our studio and as a massage therapist touching people. So I had to real quickly figure out what in the heck am I going to do? So I went online like most everybody did. And I'd always been apprehensive to going online because I am such an in-person kind of person and didn't grow up with the technology. So it took me some time to kind of wrap my head around getting excited about it. And so the first thing seemed like, well, let me at least put a camera in the room. I can teach classes in front of the camera. And we have such an incredible clientele. And one of the beauties of at that point, we're in business for like 16 or 15 years at that time. So we had so many clients that wanted to see us succeed that when we went online, they continued to support us financially by taking the classes online. So even though our main revenue dropped from like down, like I think we went down to like 40% of what we were earning prior to COVID, but at least there was 40% of something. And so we just obviously stopped eating out, obviously stopped taking vacations, obviously stopped doing a lot of things, tightened the belt. And then we had to let go of a lot of our employees, unfortunately. We've been able to bring a lot back, but at the time my wife and I was like, it's like starting our business all over again. And we came in. Well, at that point when I realized I wanted to go online, I wasn't really a big fan of being in front of the camera. I was a little shy about it. And I thought to myself, what would I want to do? And I started listening to podcasts and I'm like, ooh, maybe I could do that because I love to talk. I love talking, if you haven't noticed that. I like to talk and I love learning. I love to learn by listening to you. Like when I got a chance to host you, my podcast name is Native Yoga Toddcast. Our yoga studio is Native Yoga Center. Our website is nativeyogacenter.com. So my wife was like, well, you have to do a Toddcast since your name is Todd. I said, yes. And my podcast episode number 1 was me sitting in my garage going, what is going on? Is it the end of the world? I'm like we have to shut our studio down and how am I going to survive? And it was so freaky. I remember at the time I was like, I just couldn't believe it was happening, to be honest. It just felt like otherworldly. It just never, something I never came across. So what a blessing though. This is a classic example of like through friction, if we keep our mind frame on what can I do? What can I do right now? Let me start. And I was lucky enough that somebody had the podcast gear and he said, Todd, I'm not using it, borrow it. You can buy it off me if you like it. And so that kind of helped me to jump the hurdle of the financial investment to get started with a little bit of gear. And I just started doing the podcasting. What an incredibly therapeutic process, because I started interviewing yoga teachers all over the world and asking them, how are you surviving? What can I learn from you that I can do what I'm doing here? And so by reaching out and asking questions and talking to people, I figured out solutions. And little by little, I mean, now my show is doing really well. And I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe that it's growing. I've been at it for like 4 years. I think I'm up to episode 175. I'm getting ready to release your episode really soon. Everybody, please go to and listen to Jessica's episode on my show. I can't wait for you to hear her stories. She has so many incredible stories. You have to go check it out. But with that being said, I found that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what niche I could go down. And podcasting, once I found this, I really started to love it. And it's been such an incredible process. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to meet you, Jessica, because I got introduced to you through Andrew and Pam Jones. And they said, you gotta interview Jessica. She's another podcaster, yoga teacher. And I think you guys are going to really get along great. And so, like when I got a chance to meet you and you're a podcaster, like just alone to have that to talk about, like to share stories and like what camera do you use? Which platform do you use? How do you edit? How do you get your show out there? Like I've learned so much from what you're doing too, Jessica. So I feel like it's the more we come together, the more we talk, the more we keep an open mind, the more we're willing to listen to others. And I think what's really important right now, more than ever, is like I want to be open to listening to your viewpoint, even if your viewpoint is so radically opposed to what I believe. I want to try to understand how you got to your viewpoint. And if I just ask questions and don't rebuttal, that'll break down the barriers so that you and I can just see eye to eye. If we're willing to ask questions, just listen. And so this process for me, like podcasting, is I think it's a strategy for us to get together on the global level and collaborate more than compete with each other. And if I can promote you and you're promoting me now, thank you so much. Like what an incredible opportunity for us to collaborate. And so I think the more on a global level, if we try to figure out ways that we can collaborate with people that we don't agree with, let's try to find people that we don't agree with and how can we work with them? Well, how can we collaborate? There's got to be something we can do. If we can start thinking like this, we can live in a world where there's no war and there's peace and we can share water and we can share food and we can share business ideas and we can share everything. I think it's possible. It's a bold vision, but I do believe it's my main vision. It's my main goal. It's like we have to come together and Let's unite. I don't think we need to have a civil war. We don't need to go to civil war. We've done enough civil wars over the years. All over the world, there's been civil war for how many thousands of years? We've learned from that. If we can't look at history and learn from that and come together, now let's skip all that. So that's part of my vision with the podcast and talking. It's not about podcasting and trying to become famous. It's about let's communicate, you guys. Let's talk. Let's talk. And I think it's possible. And I think you and I are proving it. We didn't know each other from the man in the moon, the woman in the moon. We just met and started collaborating together. So I can't wait to see what comes out of our what we're cultivating here, because it's I think there's a solution. I think we can find solutions.
I could not agree more with everything you said. Yeah, I think podcasting is such a beautiful platform that just allows us to, yeah, to meet people. I mean, we're completely in different places right now. I'm in New York, you're in Florida. Like, it's like we're breaking down so many barriers that that I think is just incredible. And to me, it's like, yeah, being curious, having deep conversations, and then allowing other people to listen in on those, to gain these insights, to hear so many different points of views and perspectives, and learn a little bit from each other. I just think it's so powerful. So I love everything you shared. And yeah, it was such a gift. So thank you again to Andrew and Pam for connecting us. And yeah, it was such a blessing to be on your podcast. I love having you on mine. This conversation has just been so incredible. So yes, I feel so blessed to have podcasting come my way, and I'm so thankful that you have it as well, so we can meet each other like this and share these great moments.
Thank you, Jessica. Maybe moving down the road, if somebody's listening that goes, well, that's great, you guys. That's so cool that you get to do that. I'm not doing that. So how does that fit into my life? Well, A, obviously you're listening, so it is fitting into your life. And, maybe we can, if you want to learn how to do it, it's not that hard. So like start a podcast, start conversing with your friends and family. Um, it's a really fun skill. I love the element of not knowing what I'm going to ask you, not knowing who you are, not knowing. I try to do a little research, so I'm not totally ignorant, but I kind of like not knowing. I believe like everybody has an incredible story to tell, and the ability to ask questions, like, and I think that that is actually this really simple formula for figuring out how to get along. I know we already said all this, but so we can, if you want to learn how to podcast, we will teach you. It's not that hard.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. I mean, the thing that I love saying right now is I'm like, I fully believe we are in the golden age of knowledge and the ability to learn how to do practically anything. And podcasting is one of the simplest ones, in my opinion. But I just think that there's so much opportunity right now to be able to learn whatever it is that you have this, like, if you're saying it's a crazy dream out there, it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that crazy. Like, just go on the internet, learn it, and just start doing it, and just be in the journey. And so I think that's so much of what we've been talking about today, which I think has been so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes. Well, thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share that we have not covered off on? I know we've talked about a
I
lot.
know. I think we did a great job of covering the bases. I mean, I just want to tell those of you that are listening, keep going, keep powering forward, dream big, read. I really encourage you to read books, read things other than social media. Read books where people had to take the time to actually write the entire book, get it edited, and formulate their ideas in a professional fashion. I'm a huge reader. I read every day. I'm a voracious reader. I think keep reading, keep learning. That's probably all I'd have to add to our conversation.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's get into our final questions then. Your
Okay.
first question is, how would you describe your current relationship to yourself?
I'm feeling happy about where I'm at right now. I'm feeling successful. That's the word I would pick.
I love that. What is something that you are currently working on?
I am currently working on building my YouTube channel and hitting the 1,000 subscriber mark. I think I'm around about 760 something subscribers. And my goal is to monetize my YouTube channel, not for just the money side of it, but more because I picked a challenge. I didn't think I could do YouTube, and I'm almost there. I'm three-quarters of the way there of hitting my goal. So that's a project I'm currently working on.
Amazing. Everyone go and subscribe to Todd's YouTube
Thank
channel.
you. Thank you. Native Yoga Center. Thank you for the plug.
Of course. What next question is, what do you consider most valuable to you right now?
For me, is my family, my wife, and my children. I gain so much joy out of watching them, my children grow, and my wife is absolutely incredible, and she's just the most amazing person in the world. So, just hanging out with my family is what's most valuable to me.
Amazing. All right, next question is, what is the best lesson that you've learned recently?
The one that I covered with my back injury, I think the main lesson I learned out of that is be patient, study and be diligent, and be willing to try different things to heal, and then stick with it, and just don't don't think this is over, it's the end. Like, be able to see that that it's gonna get better. Like, and not, I got so down and dark. Like, if the next time I have a really dark moment in my life, I want to somehow take from that experience and just remind myself that it's gonna be okay. Don't give up. Yeah, that's the biggest lesson I've learned lately.
Such an important lesson. All right. Your final question is, what do you see as the purpose or meaning of life?
I'm gonna say sharing and love. I'm gonna say, like, the two, sharing love. That's my biggest purpose. Like, to somehow tap into feeling love and to feeling compassion, and then to somehow communicate that, to somehow share it. So for me, on a deep level, that's my purpose.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Todd. This has been incredible. Can you remind everyone where they can find you?
Yes, my website, nativeyogacenter.com, all of my social media, Instagram, Facebook, is at Native Yoga, podcast, Native Yoga Toddcast, YouTube, Native Yoga Center.
Amazing. All right. Well, definitely go and check out Todd's podcast, subscribe to his YouTube. And it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. I'm so glad we got to do this and have another incredible conversation. And it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you, getting to hear your story. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jessica. You're so good at this. Keep going, and you have such an incredible vibe and way of your of being that I just think you're doing great. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you so much. Want to create more flow in your life? Go to the description below and sign up for the email list. I'll be sharing more insights and strategies with you, just like the ones you heard today. Remember, the power to create the life you desire resides within you, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. The world needs what you will create.